All right, number 2. Ecclesiastes 3:3-8 says there is a time to hate and a time to kill. Yes, there is. There's also a good Simon and Garfunkel song along those lines. Please help me understand this. There is a time to hate and a time to kill. A time for every season under heaven. And that probably is the gist of the thing. Anytime we're reading poetry in the scriptures, I think we have to read with a little bit greater license. This is really, in fact, we were talking about this the other day because we have a Bible 101 class that's going on here downtown, and I think we're on our second week or so. And you know, it's not surprising to me. I mean, the Bible is not really an easy book to read, to be honest. It's not in chronological order. It has a variety of types of literature, and it's 66 books. And the greatest mistake I think people make when they read Scripture is they don't step back and consider what type of literature they're reading. In Ecclesiastes chapter 3, I would say this is one of the great poems of the Bible, the Old Testament. And in that vein, we as readers have to approach it as such. And so I would caution against us pushing this to an extreme, in that I don't think that God, in fact, we got a question about this last week from a soldier, is there's a command not to kill. And so I would not interpret this verse as some license to do that. Although, as we talked about last week, I mean, Israel interpreted that as not quite as a literal command, in that Israel had an army. They did. And so state-sanctioned violence, in Israel's view, was not a breaking of the command to not kill. Also, Israel would say self-defense. If somebody is coming after you, and you, in defending yourself, take the life of another, that is not a transgression of the command. Now, there are, of course, Christian groups in the history of the church that have disagreed with this. And I think we talked about this last week, and that you take something like the Moravians or the Mennonites. These are Christian groups that came to America, and they are also pacifists. And so they look at us, groups like the Methodist Church, and say, you know, you're close, but to be honest, you're not quite there, and they interpret the command literally. But in this passage, I'd caution against us understanding this, but it may refer to as something like a time to have self-defense or a time to hate. And even though Jesus gives us strong words against those emotions, we are to pray for our enemies and such, we can envision a scenario where somebody comes at us or attacks us, and we can hate what they do without hating the person themselves. As I read there, think about the passage in Ecclesiastes chapter 3, I really do think the concluding line that captures the spirit of the chapter, when the poem is really trying to tell us that over the course of one's life, there will be a season for everything. Meaning that at some point in this life, there's going to be something that happens to you that you hate. There is going to be something where you may have to take something from someone else. There will also be times of joy and peace and love, and Ecclesiastes 3 goes on to say those things to us as well, but there will be a time for everything. One way I guess I sort of capture this is I say, in life, there are 3 people that you're going to need. You're going to need a good doctor because you're going to get physically sick. You're going to need a good therapist because somebody is going to drive you crazy, and it could well be you. You know, I always say every family is nuts when you get to know them, and if you don't think so, you're the crazy one. That's just practical experience, that is. And the final person you're going to need is you're going to need a good pastor, because you're going to die, and you're going to want somebody to say something nice about you. All the more reason for all of you to volunteer in your church. Because if you don't, and we don't get to know you, we are going to stand with you down there, dead, and not have much to say. And that's painful. So take this as an encouragement to you to volunteer in the life and the ministry of your church. All that to say is, life is long, okay? Life is long, and there are going to be seasons of everything. There are going to be seasons of abundance. There are going to be seasons of scarcity. There are going to be seasons of blessings. There are going to be seasons where God feels distant. It's going to happen. If it hasn't happened to you, it may happen in the future. But there's a season for everything, and the great reassurance I find from Ecclesiastes, which the book translated means wisdom, is that for every season of life, God is present. God will always be there. God will always be faithful. The baptism that you and I acknowledge is a promise, a covenant that God has made with us. No matter the season of life, God is here. And if we hold on to that, whatever season of life we're in, as difficult as it may be, will go much smoother. So rather than having sort of a literal take on this passage, I would step back from it and try to interpret it a little bit as a poem of which it is.